This is AV Week, episode number 15 for November 12th, 2011. Tim killed Laserdisk.
Ready.
AV Week.
Performing scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AV Week. AV Week. It's time for AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of news, information, and commentary for the AV industry. I would be your host, Tim Albright. Hello. Thank you for joining us. With us this week is Matt Scott. He has about 3 or 4 different personalities on the internet. One would be Matt Scott, one would be Matt Scott's Hair, and probably the most importantly is Omega Audio Video. Hello, sir.
How are you guys doing today?
Doing very well. With us this week is a newbie. His name is Christopher Neto, or Chris Neto. He is an AV consultant with avhelpdesk.com. Hello, Chris.
How you doing?
Is it Chris or Christopher?
It's Chris.
Okay, that'll work. A couple things, well, more than just a couple things. We have a whole stack of stuff here this week. There's a lot of, I'm going to say, network stories this week. Everything from IPv4 and IPv6, streaming, cord cutting, HTML5, Flash going bye-bye, and that's why I want to start with the one that I want to start with. Yeah, I know. What I want to start with is this. It's out of Asia, and follow me here because, you know, sometimes I get kind of crazy. It's from Asia One News, and what it is, in Thailand, Singapore, actually, they have a new standard. It's a standard for wiring houses. What it is their one of their building codes, the IDA. They have put forth this future-ready digital infrastructure for not only commercial buildings but also for homes. And what they're basically saying is there should be a standard for wiring houses in Singapore. There should be a bare minimum that when someone buys a new home, they should expect not only from the wiring, but also where the wiring and where certain infrastructure and connection points are being placed. And I think they're even putting fiber into some of these houses, which to me is a step beyond what we do here in the States. My first question is this something that we should do, or is it bemoaning the fact that, there's another standard that our integrators and the building manufacturers have to go through, or is this cool? And the second question is, all right, if it's cool and we should do it, then what organization, Matt, is going to make us do this, I guess?
I think it's very cool. I think it's very good that we're finally getting some, again, I know this is Asia, but finally getting some good residential standards that are popping up somewhere. It's something where, especially where I am, we're happy if we get coax to the house, let alone fiber or anything else. I know at my house, and I'm in a very nice area of our city, they had to pull the coax out of the ground a couple of weeks after I moved in because it hadn't been updated since 76. And I'm like, really? Coax from 76?
But it's copper.
I know, but it's still one of those, we're supposed to be in, the 21st century and all this cool stuff. And, fiber? No, we don't have any of that near me. So the fact that they're bringing it and making it a standard and bringing it in, I think is good. And hopefully, we'll get some areas around here, this side of, North America, that'll kind of step up and say, hey, this is something that we're at least looking at. Because our infrastructure, both in Canada and the U.S., there are some areas where it's very advanced, and then there's some areas where it's not advanced at all.
So, Chris, I am not a big government proponent, so let's start there. But is this something where either the housing and urban development people or some group can say, hey, this is a standard, or is this more of an industry standard that a building standard committee can say, hey, this is something we should do?
Well, you're now gonna play with two different things. You have local and state and all that in play. When you're building the house, similar to development where I live, we have underground power. and underground phone, underground this, that, and the other thing. That's great. The community was built in the 90s. Once you go out of here, you have telephone poles, you have copper, you have everything up in the trees. So with the recent storms, for example, I had no problems here. Don't have to worry about tree power lines, whatever, getting cut. Everywhere else is still up and above. You can do whatever you want within the home, but it's similar to what Matt's saying. Until cities, states start adopting, we need to move to the next generation of wire or new fiber or whatever. We do need something, and I think it's going down the right path. Wiring the buildings, I think, is the first step. Wiring houses would be the first step in making that happen. I would love to have all my cable go to my garage, for example, terminate on a block, and that was the builder. That would
hey.
Yeah.
You're asking a lot there.
Well,
It's.
here's a question because I don't know. I'm not a builder. I don't pretend to be one. I do well to do what my wife asks me in the house. Is this? What's the best way to ask this question? Are there local standards that says this is the bare minimum wiring that you do, and this is where you put it, or is it just by each builder on his own? Or if you're fortunate enough to build your own home, you can specify to the builder, "Hey, this is where I want this."
I personally don't think that you're seeing builders even consider still network and TV as part of their. I mean, they will do the RF. Your cable, standard cable wiring in the house, and that's about as far as they go. But I don't think that's even a consideration in a lot of builders' minds.
Yeah, I know with most of the builders that we deal with, it is the farthest thing from their minds. They could care less what you have in the house from a tech point of view. They don't think about it. They don't put any resources into it at all. And you're usually stuck with an electrician and whatever they're going to run, which is usually fairly limited. Yeah. For us, it's something that, again, I think it would be great if there was a standard for, even just the basic, white can boxes at some point in the house where everything's going to terminate so that it gives, the homeowner the ability to do a little bit more than what they want. The biggest thing that still cracks me up to this day is that I walk into any new home. I was in one this morning doing a quote for a customer, and they had a TV set to go into their master bedroom. And I looked at it and went, "Oh, awesome! There's a cable plug, 5 feet off the floor for the TV. That's great." For an electrician who says, "Hey, we're going to pull cable for this spot for the TV. Where are you going to put the box?" And I know AT&T just brought out a wireless U-verse box, but again, it's that's the standard thought that builders have is, hey, they're going to put a TV here, throw a piece of coax there. Yeah. And there's no thought given to, in this day and age, I don't know anybody who still really has a TV without a cable box of some form somewhere.
There is rumors around here, and I haven't seen it, and this is in the New Jersey area, of the cable company that actually provides the small
the mini boxes?
The mini box.
Yeah.
And that's the closest you're going to find to a solution.
But are those HD?
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Because I know ours, we have the little tiny boxes that are, not much bigger than a external hard drive, but none of them are HD.
Let me ask you guys this again, because I'm not a big fan of the government, so I'm by no means going to say, hey, Congress, you should get on this and make this a standard. But this is something that, in my mind, this is something that either Infocom's STEP could come in and say, this is by wiring for the future. And I'm not saying put in fiber, but put in Cat 5, Cat 6, Cat 7. Some sort of category cable that can handle IPv6 and maybe a little bit beyond. And yeah, fiber would be great. But by putting in this cable, you're going to get X amount of step points for making it easier to reduce the overall footprint. Does that make sense to anybody? Or am I stretching here to try to not get the government to do it, but more get an industry to do it?
I'm with you. I would much rather have less government control in that, type of area. I don't need the government telling me what I can do with a TV or, with internet in my house. Getting it to an industry standard would be much, much greater. But again, that comes down to the same issue we've had with LEED for so many years of, you can have an ICF form will get you this huge amount of LEED points, but you could put a full energy management system in the house that actually is, really going to help save energy, and they accredit nothing to that or next to nothing.
Maybe that's why I'm asking about, and maybe Infocom isn't the trade organization for it. Maybe somebody else is.
Yeah, it's probably somebody, more like the big home builder association, which I'm blanking on at the moment. But again, getting them to actually do it, because I know in my experience as a resi guy, builders love anything that they can tout as a selling feature, but more importantly, make money on.
Yeah,
they really don't. Definitely from a tech side of view, they don't care how cool it is, what it does, blah 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 blah. They just view it as cutting into their bottom line.
To me, they can make money on this.
I would agree. It's just convincing them that they can make money on it.
All right.
It's the same as when we go and, push lighting control. Builders are scared to death of it, it seems. And yet, when you look at it, you're selling a $150 dimmer or switch or whatever versus a $199 dimmer. So, yes, it's going to cost more money, but how much profit is that dealer making off his regular switch he's putting in?
And what's the wow factor of that once,
Yeah, exactly. And yet, I understand that, you understand that, our industry for the most part understands that, but the building industry is still, by and large, oblivious to it. They still don't grasp it unless someone who's listening to this has figured out a way to convince them of that, and then let me know.
You'll be hearing from them shortly.
Hopefully.
From AV Technology, very cool website and magazine. Phil Hip and Steel. Phil writes a column. Basically, it's an answer column. This was a letter to him asking what the biggest impact IPv6 is going to have on the AV professionals. Chris, we'll start with you. Phil goes in to say, one of the biggest things is the fact that the data packet is bigger. You're going from 4 bytes to 16 bytes, which I get. It also goes into the fact that there are two more numbers instead of 192.168.1.1. There's two more .1s. But it's more than that. It's the fact that there are a number of devices, and unfortunately, I know a number of AV devices that aren't IPv6 capable. So when they throw the switch and say, okay, we're all IPv6, you're going to have some switchers and some network devices that are just going to choke and die.
Yeah.
How big of an issue is this? Nothing against Phil. I actually agree with most of what Phil says. How big of an issue is this for the industry as a whole?
Well, if you want to take the corporate perspective, this is already a challenge for IP groups or IT groups within companies. They're trying to figure out how we're going to do this. Once you add the layer of video, they're still trying to figure that out. You mean
AVB or just video in general, just streaming stuff?
I'm talking about a video over IP.
Okay, so streaming
streaming and stuff like that. I mean, you still have corporate customers out there that haven't upgraded their wiring internally, haven't upgraded their switches because it's good enough. And under the current, economic situation where companies are constantly, cutting back and doing all this stuff, their infrastructure is being affected by this. So those switches that were scheduled to be replaced a couple years ago are going to have to go a little further. I don't know how this is going to work. Honestly, on a corporate level, it's really going to be, it's a ticking time bomb because you want to say lights out to IP, IPv4 and lights on to V6, and it's not going to happen overnight. And if anything, it's going to be, it's going to cause a lot of heartache.
Well, here's a silly, naive question on my part. Why didn't they reverse engineer some stuff, or why haven't they reverse engineered IPv6 to handle IPv4? This is no different than when I was in college and in high school. When the PS1 came out and they introduced the PS2, I could play my PS1 games on my PS2.
That didn't last long, though.
Well, I'm being very simplistic here because I don't really understand why they wouldn't do that.
What is a PS2?
Oh, shut up, Matt. It's a large device that you put a quarter in, and then you take this little yellow guy named Pac-Man, and you try to gobble up all the dots before the ghost gets you.
I remember Pac-Man. Okay. Why they didn't set it up properly to handle that, I don't know. I'm sure that there was probably some reason that seemed more valid than the benefit of switching. The biggest plus, if you will, that I see about this is that yes, it's going to cause a lot of heartache for corporations, but and small businesses and whatever. But the plus that I see is that it's kind of one of those forced upgrade opportunities that some of us installers kind of like, because yes, it sucks that they're going to have to go out and spend money, but the plus is that there's now a boatload of corporations that are going to need, at the very least, some service calls to update firmware, if that's something that they don't either have a tech department for.
If you can do that.
If you can. But that's the thing. I know there are some devices, and again, when we're talking corporate, unless that device is dramatically older, it should be capable. All the smart switches that somebody's bought in the last 10 years, I would have to assume the majority of them would be firmware updatable. Because again, we're not talking like a $90 D-Link switch that you bought at Staples. We're talking enterprise, again, for a large portion of the corporate world, we're talking the larger, smart web switches from Cisco or from, whoever, that are much more technically advanced than a lot of these other ones and should be able to be upgraded. Like, how long have we been talking that IP6 is coming? Like, how many years has it been?
Okay, but I'm not talking about switches. And switches, yeah, I get. And they getting, the guys at the corporate level to, switch out their switches. Yeah, I get that. What I'm talking about is you have a Kramer switcher or you have an AMX switcher that's 6 or 7 years old that at the time was was IP capable because that was the new cool thing. Both Extron, Crestron, AMX, Kramer, all those guys had devices that you can put on the network. I could be wrong about this, but let's say that you have a device that's 8 years old. In the corporate and the education world, that's half-life. That's not even. You're about 50% of what you expect to get out of that, because you don't buy this every day. You don't even buy it every 5 or 6 years. You expect to get 10, 15 years out of this sucker. Even though your consultant told you not to, you understand how much money you've got on a yearly basis. So your IT department is chugging along, doing their due diligence, and hey, we're getting ready to do IPv6. Whereas the technology manager, down in the basement, who doesn't know it, isn't included in on the emails that the IT department is putting out, has no clue, and then all of a sudden they flip a switch. He gets a mass email to everybody in the company saying, "Hey, yay, we're now IPv6," and his phone starts ringing off the hook because none of his stuff is working.
Yeah, and that is where the big issue is going to come. Yeah. Is that those will be the situations where, unfortunately, they're just going to have to, like, what's the option? If it's not something that's field upgradable, they're going to be forced to upgrade. Yeah. and again, I understand why we had to go to IP6, but it's just one of those troublesome things that, unfortunately, people will have to upgrade.
Yeah, and I do too. I think it's going to be a great thing, especially for AVB once IPv6 gets up and running fully. With everybody. That's going to be a huge boon for that.
You just don't want to be that campus guy.
No, no, I don't.
It's all on room management's capability.
Yeah, all of a sudden, half of your rooms you can't see anymore, and you don't know why.
Where did they go?
Oh, dude. I'm going to get total evil here. So let's say that you have certain protocols in your room management software that says, email security when this stops responding.
Uh-huh. It's gonna be
and they flip a switch, and like their security department is inundated. Oh my God, we've lost 100 pieces of equipment or 100 rooms. Somebody has stolen. We've just got hit by the biggest bandits in history.
It'll be our Y2K.
Yeah.
It's in that sense. Yeah, that change is going to be it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Along the same internet route, the Inform IT website, Larry Anderson wrote an interesting article called 7 Reasons to Move to HTML5. I'll give you one more than what he does, and we'll go through a couple of them. One I like a lot is easier code management, because code always excites me. Self-checking input forms. Media sanity, which is where I'm going to go to another story, and we'll kind of talk this over. What I gather from this, and I am not a huge internet HTML guru, as Matt can attest, because he's my webmaster for AVNation. This allows you to embed audio and video into video, but I'm assuming there's also probably an audio portion to this as well, straight into the browser without a player, without anything like that. And this moves us on to another story that we have this week in the stack about Adobe killing Flash, at least for mobile.
Sorry.
But that's almost like a death knell, Matt. I mean, it's almost like the writing's on the wall. Yeah, we killed it for mobile, but we're keeping the other stuff. No, they're not.
No, Flash has been, for a really long time, Flash was near and dear to my heart. It was some of the first animation stuff I worked with back when it was like Flash 2. And we were action scripting like crazy and feeling all special about stuff we could make. The downside of it for web has always been, yes, it looked awesome, but you were so limited in what you could do. And now that web has become such a all-encompassing area, the fact that Flash has been so limiting has been very frustrating. So the fact that HTML5 is allowing you to finally embed stuff properly without going out and finding a player, without all those additional issues that were always involved, is going to be really, really good. And to segue back over to the Flash side real quick, as soon as Apple came out and there was no Flash on the Apple, it was like, really? No Flash? I can't watch anything online. And even a couple of weeks ago, I was talking with a friend of mine. He was looking at upgrading, and that was his big, I need Flash. I'm like, really? What sites do you actually watch that you need Flash on?
Yeah.
And his response was, a bunch. And I'm like, man, every time I open a site that's heavy Flash, my browser crashes. It doesn't matter if it's Mozilla, if it's Firefox, if it's Safari, if it's Chrome. If it's heavy Flash, it's buggy, it's going to crash. So, again, the fact that HTML5 has come, and, I think I'm kind of sad that Jobs has, already passed, because he would have loved to see this.
Yeah.
He's probably cheering wherever he's, frozen, about how awesome this is. I don't think Steve Jobs was frozen. But
he said, "See, I told you."
Yeah, I know. I told you. Again, just what you can do with HTML5 is just so much more impressive and in depth compared to, not that you were ever really limited in HTML5, in standard HTML, but they've just brought in so many more things that we've been waiting for so long, where in the past we've either had to, again, with video, use different players, with a bunch of other stuff, get into JavaScript and all this other stuff. Now it keeps evolving into better stuff.
But we were limited, though, and Chris, you can talk about this for a second. I mean, one of the drawbacks that I discovered in doing a website, a full website with actual content and stuff, that wasn't just writing, but every week we post this podcast, and every week we try to find a way to hopefully seamlessly let people listen to the podcast. And it was, good Lord, 2 months before we discovered a piece of code, again, Matt was talking about, that we could embed into the site that allowed people to play the content seamlessly. HTML5 will allow us to seamlessly do that, is my understanding. Chris?
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'm like, wait a minute. I'm waiting for you to finish the conversation. When it comes to this whole HTML, the 4 and the 5 thing, I haven't coded since I was in, I guess, college, and I hated it. It was horrible. It was hard. And to be honest with you, as long as my computer doesn't need a Flash update anymore, I'm cool with it.
Hallelujah.
I'll just put both together there and say, let's move to the next one, because HTML5, if that's the way to go, you guys have a lot more experience on that than I do. But speaking as the novice, I guess, in this, I can't figure out why Flash is the problem. I can't figure out why HTML4 stinks. But everything I've heard from people that I know that are into the coding and all that say it's the right way to go. And my thing that grabs from my perspective is the whole geolocation thing that I like. I'm big into that into mobile, and that's where the whole thing is going. It's taking this whole thing and putting it out on mobile.
What's even cool about that also is the ability to, not that people love ads, but there's a certain trade-off. You give you give the content for free, you put up with the ads.
Our web guys love ads.
Yeah, you can. I like the geolocation too because of that. Not that we have ads on our site, but if anybody wants to, eventually, yeah, absolutely.
Just wait, they're coming.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. Let's put it that way. But you've got the ability to personalize. You're in Jersey, Matt's in Ontario, so I could put an ad for the Devils or an ad for any number of hockey teams for Matt. So. That was the only thing I could think of off the top of my head was hockey.
You.
So, but that to me, I agree with you about the geolocation.
Again,
I didn't say specific. Never mind.
It was a Canadian theme behind that one.
It was go hockey. Yeah,
I like hockey.
I know you do.
You don't, but I like
not
hockey.
Really. You know what? Hockey's awesome if I'm at the game. If I'm not at the game and it's not like a final, I'm not watching it. Case in point, I've got a SEC football game on right now.
Hockey was great when my team was relevant. So,
well, yes, that was about 10 years ago. So,
well, I'm not even talking about. I'm not a Devil fan, so I'm not even going to go into what team I'm rooting for. Just to.
Oh, but see, now we need to know.
I grew up a New York Islander fan.
Oh gosh, that's sad.
It is.
I'm not even a fan, and I know that's sad.
It's been rough. Anyway. Sorry.
So your team was relevant about the same time mine was. So the Blues broke into the league, going to the finals and losing all 3 times, and haven't been back since. So
it's the Brett Hull curse.
He wasn't even alive. Well, he was alive then, but he wasn't playing then. Back to some AV stuff. My favorite Red Sox fan, Craig McCormick, over at Commercial Integrator, wrote a very interesting article called AV Integrators Are Losing the Digital Signage Battle. Basically goes on to say this. He was in a conference or in a meeting during InfoComm this year with a couple hundred integrators, and somebody asked how many people were doing digital signage. He said maybe a dozen people raised their hand. I find this an issue, but I also see where they're coming from here. A couple of the quotes say that it's such a long, drawn-out sales cycle, which I get. So AV guys are stuck, with product and with meeting with the customers back and forth and back and forth. The other thing is that nobody really knows or understands what this stuff can do. Chris, is this going to be an issue for AV guys, or should they and are they relegating this back to the IT guys and say, I don't mess with it?
That would be nice if there was only one target where you want to send it back to. The problem with digital signage is that when you take this to a commercial customer, they have so many groups within their organization that could run this. There is the public relations side that should be writing and controlling the content. The content's big. You have the IT people that need to certify all the equipment that goes into the site. So a lot of the times these player units cause a lot of heartaches because they need to be imaged to the company's computer standards, and that's just two groups. There's the maintenance of it. Who's going to continue to maintain it if they have an on-site AV group that could keep up with it. And for the most part, all they're going to do is maintain the displays or the actual physical hardware. So there's just way too many parties involved, and you haven't even installed it yet. And to bring all those people to the table becomes a really long, drawn-out process, because there has to be agreement from everybody. And it usually is a major holdup and a major stumbling block.
Matt, is this something, as my buddy Michael Drainer has educated me on with being an integrator, is this where the cost of sale, that's my buzzword, my knowledge and the limitation of me knowing what integrators go through, is the cost of sale too great because of the number of meetings and because of how many hands you have to hold?
Yeah, I would say it definitely is a major factor. We've looked at doing digital signage quite a few times, and we've even quoted it quite a few times for a couple of different local companies around. And when we're dealing with a smaller company, sure, we can do it. We can get you the player. We can get it out the door. You'll be happy. But when we get into those larger companies, and again, the ones that have so many facets that we have to go through, it does become honestly more work than it's worth a lot of times. And not that you can't make money at it, but there seems to be this big established base of mainly IT guys that are selling digital signage, who A, have the presence to do it, but B, are, they're those companies that are saying, hey, we're going to essentially sell you the gear for next to nothing and sign you on a 3-year content contract, which is fine because they're large enough they can support that. But there's a lot of the, smaller integrators who are just not able to do that. You can't go into a large store and subsidize the cost of, even say 4 displays, 4 panels and all the infrastructure to do it at almost no sale cost, and just rely on, the recurring revenue of the actual content. Then it becomes the whole side of content creation. And that's where I think most of the AV guys are unable to really make a valid attempt at the sale of it, because there's such a large package that you have to deal with to get it, signed and done and out the door. Not to mention, again, once you add all those different hands in, if you're having to get approvals from 4 or 5 different departments who usually aren't talking to each other very well, you do get into that right hand not knowing what the left hand is doing, and you as the integrator become that person that's trying to figure it all out. So it's very, very hard to do as an AV guy. And again, the larger integrators, yeah, they're going to have a much easier time at it. But as smaller guys try and get into it, it's fine when you're with those smaller customers. But as soon as you get into even like a large grocery store, that's where it becomes just a huge, huge headache. And yeah, you can make a lot of decent money off the off the content sales and everything else, but especially if that's not stuff that you can do in-house, if you don't have a guy that can put together some decent-looking graphics and program it properly and do that time effectively, you just can't make money at it.
So is again, this something where selling it at cost would, or are these guys really just undercutting them that much?
Well, let me give you an example. I have a couple customers, and they own some Subway stores, Subway sandwich shops. And we had looked at, they had been told, hey, you guys need to start putting, DS into your stores and, play our content, play our commercials with Jared, and you can smile and, awesome. And, so they came to me because we manage a lot of their networks and a bunch of other stuff, and said, hey, can you give us a quote on this? So I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. Subway was going to supply all the actual, video content. There was really almost no creation that needed to be done. And we put together a nice quote, had the equipment at a very aggressive price point, still not necessarily right at cost, but very aggressive. And, my customer came to me, I think like a week after, we had presented the quote to her with the official quote that had come down from corporate saying, hey, this is our approved supplier for you to use. Now, you don't have to use them, but this is one of our approved out the door. Yeah. And I looked at the quote, and they're selling, a $2,000 commercial panel for nothing. It was strictly tied into their service. And again, that's where, myself, will I make more money on the, on the content and putting it together and managing that panel over time? Yes. But is my company large enough at this point to where we can float, multiple stores with, say, even $3,000 worth of gear plus installation, waiting on that, that recurring revenue to come in? No.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have the,
we're not capable of doing that. Whereas, again, this larger company was mainly an IT company. They were nationwide, and actually they were, nationwide, but out of the States nationwide. Yeah. And it's like, I can't, I went back to her and said, you know what, honestly, you should buy it from them. Yeah. I would much rather get the sale, and I know you would probably do it, just to, continue our relationship in this facet as well. But I can't even in good spirits recommend that you buy from us when they're doing it at the same, everything's the same except they're not charging you for that gear.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fun.
All right, you are listening to AV Week. With us this week is Chris Neto. He is from avhelpdesk.com. Also with us is Matt Scott from Omega Audio Video. Coming up, we're going to talk about cord cutting and flexible screens, which has me all excited. But something we started last week that, we're going to keep continuing because I'm too stubborn to stop, is the AV Job
of the Week. See, I said I wasn't going to do it, and then I did it.
And then you did it. I see what you did there. We'll be back after this. We're going to talk to two. We're going to have two jobs for you this week. So, all right, it's time for AV Week's Job of the Week. Last week, we introduced you to some European and the UK jobs. This week, we're going to do both across the pond and here in the United States. With us is Marty Raymond. Marty is from avjoblistings.com. Hello, Marty.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing well, doing good.
Tell me a little bit about AV Job Listings, kind of how you guys got started and what you guys do.
Well, originally we are actually Harness Technology, and we were very heavily involved in the recruiting business here and for the AV industry, of course, in New York City. And one of the things we noticed were a lot of companies were not too happy with the current websites out there that are giving job listings for the AV industry. So we saw a need and it was pretty much a gap in the industry here, and we figured, okay, we can actually make a site that's a little more comprehensive, a little more interactive for the folks out there, and we came up with the whole idea of avjoblistings.com.
Very cool. You've talked with your people, the guys that are on your site, and you have for us a job for this week. What is it?
Yes, this week the job of the week that we're highlighting is a job with Yorktel over in Los Angeles, California. And it's the VTC MCU bridge operator position that they have open. This is a position that I believe has been open for a while, so they're very eager to get it filled. So I'm pretty sure there's someone out there in the LA area, if not the LA area, somewhere around there, that might actually be interested in this. And if you don't mind, I'll just go over the things that they're looking for, the qualifications. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's someone that has to be familiar with Polycom MCU tools, has some form of help desk experience, an understanding of IP networks, and extensive knowledge of H320 and H323 video conferencing standards. Some of the equipment they'd like to see the folks also familiar with is RAD Vision equipment, such as the ECS Gatekeeper and the VIA IP Gateway. Of course, an understanding of the Polycom Global Management Systems, MGC, ViewStation, VSX, HDX endpoints. And they're looking for someone with about 1 to 3 years of experience in the video conferencing field as well.
So not an aged veteran, but somebody at least who knows what they're doing around a VTC.
Right. Someone who understands what they're doing, someone who knows who, when they sit in front of the equipment, will have no problems or issues in controlling the equipment. I think most important is an understanding of how to launch the calls, how to schedule the calls, how to introduce calls and whatnot. So they're just looking for someone who's a good operator of the MCU bridge system for their clients.
So if somebody is a VTC operator, bridge operator, and are in the Los Angeles area or has always wanted to live in California, how do they go about applying for the job?
Well, you can go to the website avjoblistings.com. When you click on the field for the VTC MCU bridge operator at Yorktel, at the bottom there's a brief description of how to actually apply, who to apply to, and also in fact the website also gives you a button that you can actually press, and you can populate it with your resume and your cover letter, and it will automatically send it to the folks over at Yorktel.
Awesome. So the website, again, is avjoblistings.com, avjoblistings.com. Marty, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And with us again is Pat Deely. Pat is from avjobs.co.uk. Hello, Pat.
Hello, Tim. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm marvelous, thank you.
Pat is from avjobs.co.uk, and in case you don't know much about the internet, the .co and .uk part means that she is from jolly old England. They deal with AV jobs over in Europe and into the Middle East. So, Pat, what sort of job do you have for us this week?
Okay, thanks, Tim. Well, actually, we've had lots of new jobs in this week, so it's a bit tough to find just one, but I will find just one. But for any others, obviously, just check out the website. The one that I want to talk about is for a broadcast and media solutions salesperson. It's for an account manager within the broadcast and media solutions industry, and it's working for a major vendor. It's based in the UK, and it's covering UK and Ireland. It needs someone who's experienced within broadcast and media solutions, is a good solutions consultant, and obviously knows the accounts such as CNN, BBC, ITV, Sky, all of those sorts of guys. It's very well paid with an excellent salary, and the package is 80,000 or so with a car allowance, pension, healthcare, etc. So that's a broadcast and media solutions account manager.
Wow. And if somebody's interested in that, how would they get a hold of you, or how would they apply for the job?
Well, they can either email me, which is, frog in the throat, which is pat@avjobs.co.uk, and send me their CV, or they can check out on the internet on www.avjobs.co.uk and find a link on there, or call me on 0844 884 9150.
All right, that's avjobs.co.uk. This week's Job of the Week is a broadcast media solutions specialist, account manufacturer covering the UK and Ireland. If I was a broadcast media solutions specialist, I'd love to. I don't know, though, that my wife would let me move to Ireland. So it is for $80K a year and a whole bunch of other stuff. If that's not your thing, but you're over in Europe or in the Middle East, check out avjobs.co.uk. Thank you very much, Pat.
Thanks a lot, Tim. Talk to you again.
All right.
Take care. Bye.
We're back with AV Week. You are listening to Matt Scott from Omega Audio Video and also Chris Neto from avhelpdesk.com. This week, Steve Seacrest wrote on Rave Pub's blog. Steve is a blogger for Rave Pubs. Also, he works for Insight Media. An article that I found interesting, and I also agree with a lot of what he's saying. Basically, he goes through and looks at a bunch of the cable companies' numbers from this past quarter. Real quickly, we'll go through it, and he's talking about whether or not cord cutting is a phenomenon or a result of the economy. And if you don't know what cord cutting is, basically it's when a customer eliminates or cancels their cable service or their satellite service and just goes with what they can find on the internet. Comcast lost 165,000 subscribers in the last quarter. Time Warner lost 128,000. Dish lost 111,000 customers. DirecTV was the only major player that had gains, and most analysts say that was because of the Sunday ticket that they have. However, these guys are spinning it as a good thing. I'm not quite sure how you spin the fact that you lost people as a good thing, except that Comcast was saying, well, we didn't lose as many people as we did in 2010, which was 275,000 people. That's a lot of cancellations. And they're blaming the economy. But as Steve points out, they're getting more internet subscribers. In the same period, Comcast lost 165,000 cable subscribers, but gained 261 internet customers. Chris, how do you come down on this whole cord cutting thing? Is this just a function of the fact that we are in a down economy, or are people simply finding alternatives that they like and they enjoy to paying one flat rate for 75% of channels that they won't watch and don't like?
It's a bunch of everything mixed together. Basically, the way I see it is that, the economy has a lot to do with it. I, for one, still have cable, haven't completely cut the cord, but I did cut the cord to my pay channels because, the way I see it, why am I going to pay for movies when I can go to a streaming company and get it for a third of the price? So I substituted, streaming movies. Yeah, the quality, may not be there, but if I want, I can go buy the movies and watch them in 1080p, 3D at home if I want. But why am I going to pay, $15, $20, whatever the package price is to have the movie channels when I could pay $8 a month and have the same quality and variety and control it when I want to turn it on or off? Yeah. The downside is going to be the minute the customer gets that one up on the cable companies and is doing what I did, for example, that the rates are going to go changing on the net side. So once you start doing heavy streaming, they're going to start capping. They're doing that now. Yeah, but
a lot of them are doing that now.
Yeah. So this is the game that we play. It's back and forth, back and forth. It's going to continue happening. Eventually, the content's going to be on the internet, and they are not only are they the providers, but the TV stations and the network stations and all that are they're going to realize this, and I don't know. I just see that it's going to go net. It's only a matter of time, but that's my opinion.
Matt, is this just kind of hey, because we're all in a down economy and none of us have any money, or is it because the cable companies are evil and we want to get as far away from them?
The cable companies are evil. They're totally no. They are. Well, definitely where we are.
Maybe not evil, evil-ish.
No. Here they're evil.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie. It's it's very evil up here. I'm not a fan. If I could get DirecTV and get full cable full satellite and get the 500 channels and Sunday ticket and all this other stuff for what is it, $60, $80 a month, I'd do it in a second with what we pay up here. That being said, I think it's a little bit of both. It's definitely the economy. It's definitely people just getting frustrated with their cable suppliers. But I think the other fact that was kind of overlooked a little bit is cable doesn't so much, and I'm going to use cable and satellite to mean the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
The cable doesn't really fit most people's lifestyle anymore. Yes, there's still those people who come home every day, turn on the TV, sit down, and do nothing but watch it from 6 o'clock to midnight. There's still those people. But for a lot of us, we don't schedule our lives as much around, say, that specific show that we like. We may love, NCIS, But are we going to make sure that every Tuesday night we're home to watch it? Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Especially when we can either, go on demand or go online or go to, CBS.com and watch it if you live in the U.S. whenever you want. Did you catch that? Did you see what I did?
That, yes.
So that's the big thing. Like, I was looking at, or we were watching something last night. My wife and I were sitting down. I think it was like 10 o'clock. We finally kind of sat down, chilled for a little bit, and put on Person of Interest. And I think it's a cool show. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But I don't even know when that airs. I don't know what day it's on. I don't really know what channel it's on, to be honest. But I watch it on either our on-demand streaming or I watch it on my iPad. I caught the first 3 episodes in bed while my wife was sleeping on my iPad.
See, and I think that's kind of where we're going. Now, yeah, there is a group of people who are going to always come home by 5 o'clock, watch NBC Nightly News at 5:30, and plan their life around it. And those are going to be older people. Nothing against older people, but once you get into that's a generational thing. There is a focus, and we've talked about Gen X, here and Generation Y and stuff. And Matt, you're on that cusp. I'm a firm, I'm fully ensconced in the Generation X. I have nowhere to go, so I'm a Gen Xer. And I think our generation is kind of we have feet in both media minds. There's a number of. I would love to cut the cord. I would cut the cord in a heartbeat if my wife would let me. and I'm not saying that to patronize my wife, but she has certain things that she likes, and she likes the lean back mode, if you will. You're sitting on the couch, you're leaning back, you have the remote in your hand, and that's how you're controlling your content. And until I can get to a point where I can emulate that and cut the cord at the same time, I'm stuck either with cable or dish of some sort. But my kids are already, they watch a handful of shows that they've caught on to, and we DVR them, or they can watch them on the internet. And they don't know when they are, or when they're playing. They'll go over to my dad's house, who does not have a DVR, and he's in his 60s, and he's one of these people that, if he wants to watch a show and it's on, cool. If it's not, no big deal. But they'll get a little, not bent out of shape, but questioning why Pawpaw doesn't have the Fresh Beat Band on his TV whenever they want to watch it.
Yeah. And again, that's what I think it is more so than any of these really other things. It's just more people are finding ways to better adapt their usage and their intake of TV in general in different ways. Now, I don't think I could ever cut the cord. I don't want to. And in Canada, where we are, I really can't. I can't go to NBC, CBS, ABC and watch something streamed from their website. Now, I can go to Global and watch stuff that's streamed, but I can't go back and watch, I might get 2 episodes, maybe 3 at the most. I can't go back and watch the season premiere of Big Bang. It's not going to happen.
This goes to, we actually have this in the stack too. This goes back to, I think media companies, though, are getting this. I don't think the cable companies are. I think the media companies are.
Yes.
Disney has signed a multi-million-dollar, it's $10 to $15 million deal with YouTube. This is not so YouTube can show the Mickey Mouse Club. This is YouTube exclusive content that Disney has created. That's huge. That is absolutely huge. 10 years ago, Disney and the then Disney is the big parent company of ABC and ESPN and all this other stuff, was screaming and yelling just as much as CBS and Viacom and all these other guys about pirates and stuff on the internet, and people are putting our stuff up and they're stealing and this, that, and the other. This is a 180 turn where they get it. They absolutely get it. So to where this is where actually it was a really cool line that I've heard other places, but one of the vice presidents said, "We're going to where our audience is." Yeah, which is a vast departure from Walter Cronkite and the 60s generation of news, where we're going to tell you where to be and when to be there.
Right.
And that's the way it is. That was my
And
Walter Cronkite.
again, that just comes back to the bigger picture of the way we as a society are now starting to consume anything in which we do.
Mm-hmm.
We do our shopping online. We do, we still may go to the store to buy it, but we're going to check out a couple of things and check prices online before we, drive around all day.
That's where we're going to compare is online.
Yeah. We're going to, I get the majority of my news. Granted, I am a large news junkie. I rotate quite quickly between, Fox and CNN and BBC and all the other stuff. But I still get most of my breaking news faster via Twitter than I do anywhere else. And, again, that's just where our society is going. So, yeah, the companies are finally starting to make that available. And in all honesty, if we had had this conversation, even 6 months ago, the amount of TV that I could consume on, online in Canada would have been maybe 10% legally. We're talking of what I can obtain now. Now I can keep up at least with the majority of shows if I want to, whereas before I couldn't do that. Unless I went to some torrent site or something. Yeah. Not that I know what those are, but if I went to what is called a torrent site and found something to download, then yeah, I could watch something. But I couldn't watch last week's episode outside of doing that. So they're moving very quickly to get there. But again, it will become one of those things when people start to really realize how many people are consuming, essentially TV on devices like their computer and, their iPads and stuff like that, who do not have a cable account. That's when I think we're really going to see a big difference in how stuff is produced and where it's going to go. Because you still, when you're paying that amount for cable, that's a huge amount of revenue that does, to some degree, go back to, Fox or CBS or whoever's producing the shows you like to watch.
Yeah. This kind of dovetails into something else, and Chris, we'll start with you on this one. From PC World, John Brandon wrote an article comparing streaming and Blu-ray to kind of the beta VHS wars of the early 80s. He called it format wars. It's not really format wars, but I guess it's a media war, as it were. And I took away from this. He's just asking the question, should people invest in Blu-rays? And I'll ask you, should consultants and end users spec Blu-ray? Or should they more appropriately spec a digital infrastructure that'll support HDCP regardless of the media that it's played on? I
think you need it, and that's me personally saying that. Because
Blu-ray?
No, I think you need Blu-ray. And what you have is it's not the wars, as they say it. It's take it like you have a 40 mile per gallon car that you drive every day, and then you got your Ferrari. And that's what it is. You have the convenience of streaming when you want it, and it's good enough, and it's accepted at that. And then you have Blu-ray, which that's the one where you're going to sit down and get immersed in it, and you want to see all the fanciness of the great job of the production and how a movie was shot in 3D, for example. Streaming, it will get there. But right now, it's the two different types of viewing, in my opinion. It's two different experiences. One is convenience, one is every day, while the other one is you sit down. It's the private home theater versus the TV in the kitchen. To go back to the conversation you just had, I'm trying the Roku Apple TV experiment in my own home, because I don't want to run cable to my kitchen. I want to see if I can do it. And this goes back to. Sorry, Matt, I didn't mean to offend you.
No, you're fine.
But doing the doing that. And it's acceptable to me to just have, something playing on the set. And streaming is acceptable. The quality is good enough, but I know that. The problem is that there's going to be people that will just say, we'll read this and take it literally. Yeah, we don't need Blu-ray because Blu-ray, who wants to pay for Blu-ray? Well, if you know the difference between the two and the quality, and if you are a video file or an audio file, you're going to appreciate Blu-ray. There's room for the two is basically what I'm trying to say.
And I would agree with the fact that in residential there is room for both. My life and my background is more educational and corporate. I would argue that there isn't room for Blu-ray in there because, as we talked about earlier on the show, these are guys who expect this infrastructure to last them 10 years. They're not joking. They're not blinking when they say this.
Yeah. Because
it's a large expenditure. If I'm consulting someone or advising someone, you know what? Put in the digital infrastructure and put in enough to where, put it into where if you have a Blu-ray on your laptop or on your computer, it can play. But don't buy a Blu-ray player, first of all. And don't base your entire design around Blu-ray because it's not going to be around. There are still instructors at one of the colleges I deal with that are still playing VHS. So let's start with that.
Yeah,
VHS, that's nice.
Yeah, and so that's why I don't. That's why I think that Blu-ray is going to be kind of lost in this whole little weird transition and crossover, where it will be like, I don't know, the mini disc. Not to throw another product under Sony's bus, but I really do see it as being something that was really cool and really high end. And I agree with your Ferrari analogy. It's a great analogy because that's what it is. And not a lot of people that I know own Ferraris.
Yep. Well, I mean, the thing with Blu-ray is, you're right. In the corporate sense, they're having a hard enough time just streaming regular, bandwidth, let alone HD bandwidth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're now building an entire network, you're right, around it. And then when you throw HDCP into it, and the fact that a lot of our, manufacturers out there are still battling back and forth as far as what connector even to use. That is, you still got all these things in play. And, it's still very turbulent, in my opinion. And, there are people that are just basically just laid down and said, we're just going to go ahead and do what is there today. And that's the best we could do, simply because, you're building systems that are analog and digital.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you're hoping that what you choose as, or what you're installing as a digital system will remain in standard, and that's for corporate, you're right. In the residential, it's a completely different thing, and you can play around with different things. But yeah, corporate gets hairy because you don't ever see instructional videos being done on Blu-ray, unless, you're now getting into the copyright issues, which is why Blu-ray was developed to begin with. This is all because of the Motion Picture Association. They wanted that, those algorithms in there and that coding in there to protect against piracy. So I don't know how that fits into
CSLA.
I don't know how it fits into the corporate world. I don't know if that actually. You're right. I don't know if that actually fits those.
Well, the biggest thing with the corporate world, from my view, is the fact that you can still have it, but how many corporate clients actually need or desire that true HD setting? Like, it's one thing if, again, you're throwing a TV on a wall to pretty much play a logo behind the entry desk that you want in stunning HD. But it's a whole other thing if it's, again, your boardroom setting, where no, you're not playing any disc-based media. You're trying to do telepresence or, something of that nature. And that's where I see the big difference between the corporate and the residential market, is that they really don't need that high-def capability in most situations. Would they like it? Sure. But are they getting high-def media? No. It just doesn't happen. Like, I have a friend who produces digital training videos for the big three automakers. And he does master them in 1080p. He does export them in Blu-ray, but they have seen their sales, not their sales, but they've seen their usage switch dramatically from the discs that they were sending out even 2-3 years ago on 2 years ago on Blu-ray to now where they're doing almost everything digitally and hosted, so that each dealership can just pull down those videos and watch them at their convenience. Yeah. They're not needing the Blu-rays that even 2 years ago were kind of the expected medium.
Well, and I'll give you a better one than that. When I was in high school, late 80s, early 90s, I worked for a dealership as their janitor, and part of my job was to clean up their meeting room. And they had, this was a Toyota and Dodge dealership, they had a Laserdisc player.
Ooh.
Hooked up to their big screen TV, and Toyota. The reason they had it was because Toyota, and that's what Toyota sent their training videos on. And towards the end of my tenure there, they had switched over to satellite transmissions simply because Toyota was not sold on the idea that physical media was the future. This is back in 1991, and that was a long time ago.
You could have saved Laserdisc.
I could. You know what? I could have. I should have called the Mr.
Way to
Toyota.
go.
Took down a whole industry.
Yeah,
Tim killed Laserdisc.
Stop that.
Yes,
I'll kill Blu-ray if you let me. But
now, see, and as a Resi guy, I love Blu-ray. I think it's great. Now, the hardest part for me is just the fact that we don't see people buying as many discs as they used to. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if I sit down and watch something on Netflix, that's great. But I don't want to download the latest. What was it I downloaded? I downloaded Fast 5 and watched that through Apple TV a couple weeks ago. It was great. But then I threw in a couple days later another movie that I have on Blu-ray that had car chases and all the same jazz, and went, wow, this was made 3 years before, but looks so much better.
Yeah.
And it did take me that second to go, oh yeah, well you watched that one via streaming. So yeah, it was still good, but until they get it to that point when they're able to actually stream, I know it'll be compressed, but some form of semi-uncompressed, 1080p high def with full resolution sound, that'll be a whole nother ballgame, and that'll be a whole nother conversation. But until that date, if I want to watch a good action movie or something, am I going to want to rent it via, again, a digital download, or am I going to, try and find a disc somewhere? If I really like it, I'm probably going to find a disc.
And see, I'm not that picky. I'm going to find it when I'm ready to watch it, and where is it available, I guess, is the best way to put
maybe
that.
you're not a true movie lover.
Probably not.
Since you killed Laserdisc and all.
I did. From Ars Technica, I'm going to start ignoring you now.
Oh,
Chris,
come on.
from Ars Technica, the Samsung is coming out with one of their screens are going to have flexible AMOLED screens. This is from their purchase of Liquid Vista. My question to you guys is this: they're saying right now that they're starting with the handsets, and they're going to move to tablets and other stuff later on. It's coming out next year. This is the AV part of this, and it's more of a question to you guys. Do you see Daylight, Draper teaming up with Samsung or somebody else to, I don't know, release a rolled up projector screen where you pull it down and there's the rolled up AMOLED screen?
Why not? That is so cool.
If they do it, I should charge them.
You should.
Oh, absolutely. You're getting rid of throw distance. You're getting rid of all this other things that can get in the way of your image. Having it rolled up, that's one thing. Having this thing installed on a wall with a slight curve to it. Wow.
Yep.
Digital signage with waves in it. I mean, possibilities are makes a person giddy. But I mean, that's wild. But you know what? I don't want to hear it until that thing goes past the 50-inch size. You can keep it. I mean, that's great that it's flexible. That's going to be used on iPads or tablets or whatever. That's awesome. I think there's an application for that. But you will definitely get my entrance once that hits the 50-inch mark, and that's going to be a while.
Yeah, at least affordably. Matt, how many years are we looking? Chris says he wants 50-inch. I'm saying I want a projector screen. So you're for me that in my world you're looking at 110 inches.
Well, yeah. As soon as I saw this article, my first thought was, man, I know how awesome those Cinescope Stewart curved screens are.
Oh yeah.
You do this in a curve, like I don't know, 16-foot wide, a foot of curb on that radius. I think that'd be just nuts. That being said, we saw OLED screens and MOVD screens, a couple of years ago when they first kind of hit the market, and it was, Sony is bringing one, Samsung's bringing one. I still haven't seen one in a store I could buy no matter how much money I have.
I think Sony's dropped theirs.
Yeah, they have. And so, I think it was at CES, Samsung had theirs in, I want to say, like a 22-inch form factor that had the weird standoff to the side. It was really cool. It's still not in a store anywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of with Chris on this one. The fact that it's there and it's going to be in mobile and tablets is really, really awesome. But when I have a hard time selling people anything less than a 50-inch TV anymore, seeing it on a tablet, as cool as it is, still means nothing to me as a screen viewing device. So I'd hate to say 6 months and have them take 4 years to never get there and then produce something cooler. But at the same time, I think it's going to be 2-3 years before we see this anywhere near the general public in a mass viewing size.
And I would agree with that. I think that the fact that we're seeing it on handsets right now is exciting and is promising. But I don't think you get to an actual display, 50-inch or above, for at least 3 to 5 years in any way, shape, or form affordable.
No.
So,
and that's the bottom line: is how affordable is it going to be in a smartphone, or on a tablet? Like I know how much an iPad costs. I know how much a Zoom costs, or whatever else you're looking at.
How much does a Zoom cost? Because I've never purchased one.
Well, not a Zoom.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, not the Motorola product.
There we go.
Not the
Microsoft product.
Bad decision Microsoft product. I think a Zoom is, I don't know, they're like $400 or $500. I don't know.
Wow.
I'm an Apple man.
But I definitely can see that on the cell phone side or the smartphone side, where this thing rolls out of your pocket. You hit a button and the screen pops out, and now you just went from the old tiny cell phone craze that we went through back in the early 2000s, where every phone was getting tinier and tinier. Now the screen just pops right out, and you get yourself your tablet, and you fold it back up, put it in your pocket, and you walk out the door. Phones are getting big again. This will change that, and that's exciting. But from an AV perspective, until it's in the 50s, I don't want to see it.
That will work.
And I won't believe it until I see it. So.
And I agree with that too.
I see a picture, but I don't know if that's real.
No, I photoshopped that actually. That was me. Sorry.
If it's 50,
I bought stock and I was trying to jack it up a little bit.
If it's 50 and it's under 2,000 or 3,000, then we're excited. But if it's like the first plasmas that were $20,000 a pop, then I'm not excited yet. So
I was at the big electronics store recently, and I'm standing there, I'm staring at the at all the displays up there, and I hear the husband and wife, and the wife, the first thing she does, she walks right up. The husband's like, he's lost. The NFL package is up. He can't walk. He can't get any closer to the TV. At this point, it stopped. She walks right past it, goes right to the side of it, and goes, "You know what? This one's thin." When TVs are being bought based on how thin they are, or there's the two different mindsets. Mm-hmm. It's a flexible, very thin, paper-like screen. Oh, that's that's going to appeal not only to people, but maybe finally we'll get some love from like interior designers, who absolutely hate anything electronic in their rooms.
Well, yeah, when you look at the fact that today, can we hide a TV effectively? Yes, we can. Mm-hmm. We can put it on a lift. We can, recess it into the wall and put a frame on it, blah, 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 blah. We can do it. That's awesome. Designers love it. They're happy. Wives love it. No problem. But there's all that added work. When it gets into something that, is a quarter of an inch thick or an eighth of an inch thick and literally could be framed properly, then that's when it becomes, something that actually becomes a part of the aesthetic in a home. Until we do that, we're still just kind of mishmashing stuff to make it work.
You're not disguising it anymore. It's just there. And that's when it's effective.
And just as beautiful. So, real quickly, guys, the folks over at New Bay Media sent me a thing and asked me to mention it. They are having a roadshow this week. They're doing it in 2 different days. One you pay for, one is completely free. It's them and Infocom. It is the 15th and 16th of this week. The 15th is a rental and staging roadshow. To register for that one, you go to rentalandstaging.com. If you'd like to go to the free one, and who doesn't like free things, especially if you're in the Dallas area, go by and check it out. It's at elandregistration.com. I'll put a link on the website if you'd like. But Tuesday is the pay one. Wednesday is the free one, November 15th and 16th. Check it out. It's from New Bay Media and also Infocom. So if you're in the area or headed that way, check them out. It's pretty cool. So, all right, we'll wrap this up, guys, unless you have something else. Anybody have anything else? Any you want to pimp, promote, or talk about?
No, I'm still upset you killed Laserdisc.
I know. I'm sorry. I'll send you flowers.
Yeah,
really?
Are you gonna try to kill A-Track too while you're at it? Oh man, that's dead.
Oh,
A-Track, it's gone.
That would be Chris Neto. He is from avhelpdesk.com. If you'd like to follow his Twitter, it is at Chris_Neto. Thank you for coming on, sir. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it. It's a good time.
Also, Matt Scott is the other one. He's my token Canadian. You can find him at Omega Audio Video at Matt D. Scott, Matt Scott's Hair, or his blog at mattdscott.com or the Rave Pubs blog squad. Thank you very much, my Canadian friend.
Hey, I'm glad I could be here.
That's all the time we have. Coming up, if you would, go by the website. If you want to follow me, I'm TD, Tim David Albright, on Twitter. But more importantly, go by the website, take our survey, let us know how we can do things better. And also check out the new podcast we have coming down the pike. I'm going to say by the beginning of December, but it may be slightly thereafter, but let's say in the next month. So go by there. The website is avnation.tv, avnation.tv. That's all the time we have for AV Week.